Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Staying fit, strong and healthy is something that we all really need to do as we age, particularly as we reach the age of 50 and beyond. But sometimes it can get a little bit confusing as to what we should be doing, how we should be doing it, and why we should be doing it. My guest today is Peta Gillian, qualified fitness and lifestyle professional who is passionate about helping women 50 plus stay strong, fit and flexible to slow the impact of aging on their everyday life through her award-winning Fit Flex Ageless Confidence and Fueled Up programs. She's been invited to share her expertise in the transformation of women 50 plus in print, media, including appearances in Prevention Magazine, Senior News, Health and Fitness Travel, Mud Putty, podcast shows, and including Fit and 50 Plus, Wise Women Central, and many more as a guest writer on guest blogs. Her commitment to women's well-being has been recognised as the winner of the Small Business Awards in Healthcare and Fitness category and a finalist in the Australian Fitness Industry Awards for 2019 and 2020. For more than 15 years, Peta has been encouraging females of all stages of life to believe they can and to be and love their whole selves, mind, body and spirit. After seeing the effects of preventable diseases on the women in her family, finding her own strategies to transform her personal health, Peta has taught these same strategies to thousands of other women. Peta loves skiing, hiking, traveling, self-care time, staying active, and loves reading to learn and to grow. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome everyone to another conversation with Women Living Well After 50. And I'm delighted today to welcome Peta Gillian from Strong Healthy Women to join us. Welcome, Peta.
Hey Sue, thanks for the invite. Happy to be here today. Looking forward to it.
Yes, well, we've got a lot of good things to talk about today, and it's all about keeping fit and healthy after 50, which is what we all want to do, isn't it? But first of all, I want to go right back. And I want you to tell us your story, Peta. Share with us, have you always been into fitness and health, or was there a turning point for you? Tell us the Peta Gillian story.
Oh, goodness, how long have you got, Sue? It's a long story. I think I would start by saying I've had a fairly colourful life. And in answer to your question, no, I have not grown up with role models as far as health and fitness is concerned. So I grew up with my grandparents, my nana and pop, and I lived with them with my mum. She went to work, I was home with my grandparents. And so at a young age, I've witnessed the effects of preventable health diseases. I've witnessed the decline of mobility. And at first, we don't think that those types of things actually affect us, but they do. And through a lot of psychoanalyzing, I've realized that for me personally, it had a massive impact because I had such a bond, like a mother-daughter relationship with my grandmother, that when she passed away when I was 11, it was like there was this massive hole in my heart. Mm. And when I think back to that, that is the point when I just started walking. So really? Walking was this thing that, and when I started walking, it was the thing that gave me that opportunity to just release, just feel, just be alone with myself. And so it was an interesting thing, because now that I look back on it, my grandmother wasn't old. Like, she was in her 60s when she passed away. And you would know that, you know, we're both women in our 60s, and we don't feel old. We're young and vital. Or that's exactly how I see it anyway. But what happened was Mum started to get these health issues in her 30s, and I see her now, the struggles that she's going through. And I then had a health issue of my own in my 40s. So I wasn't really doing anything as far as health and fitness was concerned until I hit my 40s. And it was at that point that I realized that I could very easily go down the same path that Mum was going down, my nana, and my great-grandmother had gone down this same path as well too. And so it was at that point that I really started to get more into health and fitness, and so much so that I left my corporate job that I was working in to actually start Strong Healthy Women, because I was so passionate about it. I started to learn more about fitness. I started to learn more about healthy eating. And, you know, growing up, we grew up on cereal for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, and, you know, meat and 3 veg for dinner. And so it was a very big adjustment to start looking at different ways to eat and to, I suppose, break those cycles of what had been happening in our life, the females in our family. So it was a huge adjustment, but one that was definitely worthwhile.
Yes. And I think that, you know, we look at the previous generations, and like you, I actually grew up in a household where there was 3 couples and 3 children. So there were 9 of us all in the household. And I look back on that, and, you know, you said 60. Well, I'll be 64 in a couple of weeks, and I know you've got a big birthday coming up. We don't feel old, and I don't think we look old, because we have discovered, you know, being healthy and fit, whereas our mums and previous generations didn't really have that education, I suppose, either, and they did pass away at younger ages or get that chronic illness earlier in life.
It's so true. And those types of things can really impact us. And what I found for me personally, because I ended up being in a situation where I had a stepfather, and, you know, not that he didn't love and care for me or provide for me, but I started to build up those stories in my head that I wasn't good enough and not worthy and, you know, unloved and all those types of things. And so, you know, when you go back to the past, if you stay in that past, then what happens is you just can't change. You just can't pivot forward. And, you know, when I hit my teen years, I was attacked at school by a gang of boys. You know, so that just compounded all of these thoughts that I had in my head about not being good enough. And what I've discovered is through health and fitness that you can actually change those thoughts that you have in your head, because they are just simply thoughts. So, you know, the past is there to teach us lessons, and we can listen and take those lessons away, or we can go down the same path.
So true. So I want to talk a little bit about, you know, how people can start off being healthy. And I find that there's a lot of terminology that we see, you know, like, for example, functional fitness. Now, we're meant to know what that is, but I think that you can explain it a little bit more in layman's terms to us, but why it is so important as we age to have that functional fitness. So I wondered if you could just share your thoughts on that and perhaps explain what it is to us.
Yeah, in simplistic terms, functional fitness just means fitness that is designed to keep you mobile for life, so that it is for everyday things like getting down into your cupboards, reaching up in your cupboards, lifting your groceries out of the car, all of those types of things. So the exercises that we want to do are based on keeping us in a manner that we can do things like reaching, squatting, turning, bending, lifting, all of those types of things. So, and I know that for many women, Sue, they walk. And walking is a great exercise, and you want to be able to walk, but it's not something that is going to help that all of those functional aspects of what we need for everyday life. So it's a great way to get some type of physical exercise, but it's not exactly what we need in order to keep ourselves strong, to keep ourselves fit, to keep ourselves flexible. So there are certain exercises such as squats, lunges, push-ups, pull-ups, planks, all of those types of things. What they're designed to do is to keep our body strong so that we can keep doing everyday life activities.
Yeah, and that brings me to the point about the strength and resistance training, because a lot of women will say, yes, I go for a walk every day. But and that's, I'm healthy, but they don't understand the importance of strength and resistance training and how important it is for us to have that as part of our exercise program. I think because, one, they don't understand what it is, and also because they think they're going to end up, if they lift weights, they're going to end up looking, like a big muscle builder or something, when that's not really the case.
No, it's so true. I mean, those guys that you see and the women who have those big muscles, they're doing a lot of work to get there, and special types of diets and everything like that. So for the average person like you and I, we're not going to build those great big muscles. It is just simply changing the body composition. So having less fat in our body and more muscle means that we're more metabolically active. So in other words, we burn more fat, we have more fuel for our body, and we feel more energized.
And how often do you think we should be doing that resistance training?
It should be at least 2 to 3 times a week, no doubt. Yeah. So definitely 2 to 3 times a week. What we should be doing is we should be doing something that has flexibility in it every single day, basically, at least 5 days. And then when it comes to strength training, it should be 2 to 3 days. 3 is your optimum. And then when it comes to endurance training, and we would probably know that as cardio or getting our heart rate up, then that would be at least 1 to 2 days a week. So there is a lot of variety in there. And that can be very overwhelming in itself, because you're thinking, oh my goodness, I need to do all of these things. And that's why, we designed our FitFlex program, because what it does is it bundles it all into one fitness session. So you don't have to go here, there, and everywhere else to get what you need.
And so in saying that, if someone does feel a bit overwhelmed, because if it is a lot to take in, what's your advice to them with the first step of starting where do they start? You've told them how often to do it, but it's really better to try and contact perhaps a professional to help you get a program together.
Well, I would actually go back to our getting started checklist. And I know that, Sue, we've had a discussion on this before, and it has 5 steps to it. And the first step in anything is to know why it's important to you. Because if you don't understand why, you're never going to stick at it. So, and we can say that we want to be strong and we want to be healthy and all of those things, but it really is, well, why? And take my story, for example. I don't want to have those health issues that the women in our family have had. And so I'm giving it a pushback, so it's 30 years later now from when my mother first got diagnosed. So I've given it a good pushback because of those changes that I've made in my life. And that is my why. I don't want to be on medication. I want to get through my life, if I can, without ever having to take any pills.
Yeah.
So yeah, simple stuff for me anyway. That's exactly what I want. So I know my why, but then what you want to do is you want to think about the decision. So, what type of approach do you want? So where will you be comfortable? Where will you fit in? What's going to work for you? As an example, do you just want fitness? Do you need weight loss? Do you need both? So then you move into the start. And when you get into that start process, you want to know, well, what is it that I want to achieve? So what's my goal? And then from there, it's basically getting that commitment and support to it. So I would always start by knowing why this is important to me. And then I would talk to someone who has experience. Now, talk to your friends, see what they're doing, but remember that what they're doing may not necessarily be right for you either. So it's good to look around and find out what exactly is going to work for you and know what your outcome is. What do you want?
Because there's lots of ways you can stay fit. The only problem is that with COVID, that's really had a huge impact on people's lives, because especially at the moment in Australia, because one minute we've got all these snap lockdowns that happen, and you sort of, it's stopping and starting all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And that's where like an online program is ideal. And so you can get an app and you can follow along with that app. But we actually have a virtual studio. So ours is just like running a real studio. So we as coaches get to see our clients working out. So we have a process that we go through so that we know that they're safe in the environment that they're in. And so we can see them and we can correct them. We can get them working as hard as we possibly can. We don't have to worry about those lockdowns, as you mentioned, because it is just available to you. So we run different sessions throughout the day as well. So it's got it covered, really. And the technology that you use is free. It's what we're doing today. So there's not a lot to it.
Yeah, and that really helped you stay consistent, because there's nothing worse than starting something new and then you've got to stop because of whatever reason. At the moment, it's COVID lockdowns, and so then you can lose your motivation. You think, oh, I won't bother going back. But with the online, it's there all the time. So I must admit, I like working out that way myself, because it's so convenient too. You just get up and you do it, and you don't have to spend half an hour of travel or something to the gym. So I did want to
No, I was just going to add to that, Sue. It's so true. Like, you can roll out of bed, you don't have to drive there, you don't have to drive home, so you save time with it. But what's interesting about it is that you really find focus as well and motivation, that because you are in an environment that you are around other people, but they're not in that same room as you. So there's no real distraction. You're totally focused on your workout. So it's a really great way to work out. And the thing is that what I've loved seeing is that women in the past who have gone on holidays, who haven't worked out when they've been on holidays, are now actually they just jump in to the studio and still do their workout when they're away. So we get to see beautiful scenery in the background where people are working out. So it's great from the coach's perspective as well. We get a change of scenery.
Yeah, and it doesn't interrupt your training either. You're not going on holidays and then coming back and thinking, oh, I've got to start all over again. Yeah. So that sort of leads me to another area I wanted to talk about. It's so easy for us to fall into bad habits or to not realize what's happening to us as we get older. And, you know, I know you've been talking about this a lot lately, how, you know, you just don't think about the things you do in daily life and whether you're struggling with them or not. And then suddenly you think, oh, I don't think I can do that anymore, or whatever. So I wondered if you could give us a little bit of a chat about that.
Yeah, I call it the slippery slope, Sue. And the thing is that we have all these warning signs that happen in life, but we tend not to act on them. And I was recently talking with a friend yesterday, and she actually said to me, she said, I just saw what you wrote about the slippery slope. And she said, that's me. I'm in total denial that I'm in my middle age. She said, but what I heard from what you said was, I can be fit and healthy, but I can start to notice these things. And she said, and it was so true. I have noticed those things. So when I'm going to pick up my bag, you know, there's that niggle in my back that's going on. Or it could be that you're starting to use your hand to find your way down to a chair. It can be so many different things. And I caught myself personally doing this, was that I would sit down to take my shoes off. Now, in the past, I would never sit down to take my shoes off. And all of a sudden, I'm now doing it. But I wasn't aware of it until I started to think about what are those points in our life when we will start to notice them. So we've started having this conversation now about noticing and recognizing those warning signs, because if you can recognize them, then what you can do is make a decision. And that decision can be to stay where you are and ignore it, or that decision can be, I want to change it. And so I think it's really important that if we notice it, we can make a slight change, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It can just be something simple. So for me, it was just, I need to start standing to take my shoes off. And you might notice though, if you have been sitting for a long time and now you're standing, you get the wobbles up, and so you've got to start leaning on the wall. So then you've realized at that point that, okay, my balance has been compromised. Or you might be struggling to undo the shoelaces. So there your coordination has been compromised as well too. So we're on the downhill slide and we want to get back up to that top of the mountain.
And it's so easy to say, oh, I'm just getting old. And yet you can do something about it. I know last week I was trying to get my grandson in and out of the car seat in the back. And I was thinking, you know, you need that flexibility to be able to get in and do the car seat up and you know, if you don't have that flexibility. And I thought, oh, that's getting a little bit harder these days. So, you know, you need to, they're little signs, as you say, along the way.
Like my stepdaughter, who's in her 40s, she can't get into the back of the car in between the two car seats. So, you know, that's a huge struggle for her. And so if we're going anywhere, I have to get in the back. So, you know, I'm 20 years on from her, but I'm the one who's still got the flexibility to be able to sit in the back with the kids because she can't do it. So, and that's the thing, it starts to creep in around those 40s, but we really start to notice it in the 50s and then, you know, further on from there. So, and I see it all the time with my mum, and you mentioned this, you know, you can tell yourself you're old and that's the way it is, which is what she does. Or you can tell yourself, no, I want to change this. I'm young, I'm vital, and I want to live my best life. Because if you think about it, Sue, if you can't do those everyday life activities that you're mentioning, you know, like putting your grandkids into the seat, then what happens is You're going to lose that strength to pick up those grandkids and have those snuggles and cuddles. Or at some point, you won't be able to get down on the ground and play with them. So you're missing out on those cherished activities. So it's not just about those everyday life things. It just leads to us not being able to do things that we want to do.
That's right. So it is very limiting then. So I wanted to, we're sort of coming to the end of our conversation, which is, you know, we, as you say, how long have we got? We can always keep talking about health and fitness. And the good thing is that if you are on that slippery slope, which is a great term, I think, because immediately it pulls you up, you sort of hear that slippery slope and you go, uh-oh. And it's not, you know, it's not the end. You can change that around, can't you?
Oh, totally you can. Yeah. The first thing is to be aware of it. Then once you're aware of it, you can make that change to improve your strength, your flexibility, and your fitness. And, you know, if you think about those three components, they all mean mobility. But if I was to say that word mobility, we'd stop dead in our tracks and go, oh, hang on a minute, that's an old person terminology.
Yeah.
But it's not, because it starts to affect us earlier in life.
Yes, yes. I mean, you're right. With mobility, you all automatically think of a little walker or a mobility scooter. But, you know, but we do have to face the facts that things start to happen before we realise it. But the good thing is, as you say, it's not too late. We can always change things around. We might have to modify things for a while, but we can get ourselves back to a level, because you don't want to be missing out on life. There's so much to do and enjoy.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we want to enjoy it.
That's exactly right. Now, that brings me to one of my last questions, which is something I ask all of my guests, and I'll be interested to hear your answer, because it may or may not be what I'm expecting. But it is, what does being a woman what does being a woman living well after 50 mean to you?
It means that I'm aware of my past, that I care about my future, and that I love myself in the present.
Perfect.
And what do I mean about that? So our past does not define us. So it teaches us lessons. The future is ours, and we can decide what we want that future to look like. And what we can do is love ourselves enough to do what's right for ourselves each and every day. And so we might know that as self-care, but it really is putting myself before other people. And I don't see that as selfish. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier was this attack at the age of 13. Even though that was is the most traumatic thing that I've had happen to me in my life, what it taught me was that the person who takes care of me is me. And so I would see myself as very much an expert on being able to look after myself. And so, as you know, Sue, I am in the midst of writing a book, and these three areas is what I'm actually delving into. So it'll be out this year. So I'm looking forward to that as well too. So yeah, it basically means be aware of your past, care about your future, and live life loving yourself in the present.
Well, that's a great answer. And I'm also thinking that perhaps writing the book has been helpful to you as well, because you would have been writing about your experiences, I would assume. So would be quite cathartic with that.
It totally is, because one of the things that happens is that for most of us, I think it's 70% of us have had some form of trauma in our lives. And so we tend to forget about aspects of what's happened. And so it's actually meant that I have become more aware of my life, and the things that I had shut down and never dealt with, I've been able to deal with them. So it's been brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's really great. So we will look forward to that. Hopefully this year sometime, a new book out. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about before we go is that you do have a gift for our listeners today, and I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that. And I'll be putting all the links in the show notes, but if you just wanted to give us a bit of a hint as to what that gift might be.
Yeah, it is a ebook, and it is 5 ways to instantly know if you're on the slippery slope to losing strength, fitness, and flexibility. So it will cover off the 5 most common areas that you can be aware of, and it's a really easy process to go through. All you have to do is read the question and just go, oh, this is where I'm sitting on the scale right now. And it'll give you the opportunity then to make some changes.
Well, that's great. And also, if people want to get in touch with you, I'll have all your contact details there, and they can see, because Strong Healthy Women's not only about the virtual studio, you have other services as well. You have your coaching, your challenges. I think you're doing a 28-day plant-based challenge eating. So, it's not just about the physical side. It's about really, you cover all areas of our health, don't you? So
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, Sue, because one of the things just recently is because we went into this sudden lockdown recently, a lot of the ladies actually sent through emails or put up posts about why they're so happy that they're in the virtual studio. And one of the ladies actually said, she has just recently been through some cancer, an operation, she's been through chemotherapy, and she said, I would not have been able to do this. I would not have been as strong as what I have been during that whole process if it hadn't been for the holistic approach that you guys take to health. So, it isn't just about that fitness component. And she was in contact with us all the time, telling us where she was, and then we would just simply modify things so that she could continue to keep feeling like she was connected to the other ladies and that she was being focused on her health and her well-being at the same time as well.
And that's a point I want to raise, actually, just quickly, that even though you're offering a virtual studio, for example, you can still build those relationships with the individuals and with each other, and that connection is still there. And for some people, that's all the connection they have is via technology. So I think that people need to have an open mind, because once they come into the studio, they can see that, oh, I just feel like I'm in a class. So it is an important thing that it's not just turning on the video. You're actually building that relationship, and that you and the other trainers can see what people are doing and how they're, if they've got any issues, you can accommodate that as well. And so their safety is always paramount.
Oh, absolutely. Look, and because we work with women, in these years, we know that there's going to be shoulder issues, knee issues, hip issues, ankle issues, the list goes on. And so what we do is we have a video library or an exercise library. So we take them through, the various levels of each exercise so that they can work on the level that they happen to be on right then. But what we also do is give alternates, because we've got a lot of ladies who are now started with us back in their 50s and their 60s, but they're now in their 70s and 80s and are waiting for hip replacements and all sorts of things like that. So we have to give them those alternates so that they can keep exercising, because they want to do it. They are really, really focused on what they want out of their life. And I just love seeing that.
Yeah, it's great. And I think that if anyone's listening today and they'd like to contact you, you've got your Facebook groups, and you've got the customer hub. So people can contact you and have a chat about perhaps what they could do to help themselves get a little bit fitter and healthier. And there's lots of information, I know, just on your Facebook page, and then you've got the free Facebook group as well. So lots of ways people can contact you and get some information, which is good. So remember that you can all have the gift from Peta today of that ebook that's going to help you define where you are on the slippery slope, and just a great reminder about, let's not get too far down. So thanks so much for joining me today, Peta. It's been great to chat with you, and good luck with the book.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate it, Sue. The more that we can, highlight these conversations with women, that we can love ourselves that little bit more and live our best life. And I really appreciate that you're doing this and sharing these different stories from different women with others.
Well, and I know you're championing the cause and, getting out there and helping women. And that's why I love chatting with people like you, because it's not about you, it's about what you're doing for other women and helping us all to stay fit and healthy and happy. And that's really to be commended. So for the listeners, don't forget to visit Peta through the links, get your free gift, and also see what else is on offer there at Strong Healthy Women. Also, if you've loved the episode and you think someone might benefit from listening to it, share it with them, share it with a friend, and don't forget to leave me a comment and let me know what you thought about the interview with Peta. And remember, I'll have a guest next time, but until then, remember to live well and enjoy life, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.